So today, I want to talk to you or reason with you about how God prepares his people for the work. So this is not really a topic, it's just, I just want to explain some things about how he prepares his people for the work. The Father is working through Christ to reconcile the world to himself. So how does God prepare us? How does God prepare leaders for the work? What is his plan for our lives? In his sovereignty, he has chosen to accomplish his work through his people. When God was angry with us and he chose to send a flood, he called Noah, okay? When God was going to choose his people, he called Abraham. When God needed to save his people from annihilation, he called a queen named Esther. God does not do anything in this earth until he calls his people, okay? God uses people. He uses ordinary people. He uses ordinary people like me, ordinary people like you. And some of you are already saying, oh, no, God can't use me. Yes, he can. He uses ordinary people. And in today's text, we're going to go to the book of Exodus, which is about Moses. And if he could use Moses, pretty much he can use you. In today's text, and we're gonna start on on Exodus, the 3rd chapter, because if Exodus could have another name, it would be the book of Moses, because it's all about Moses and the children of Israel. In today's text, things are not going well for the children of Israel. They have been in bondage for 400 years. A long time. They have been slaves. They have been beat down. They have been killed. They have been trodden. They have been oppressed just because of who they are. Not because they did anything. It was just because of who they are. They remind me of some people that came to America who were enslaved and who were beaten down and who were oppressed just because of who they were. Nothing else, no other reason. We don't like you. We don't like the color of your skin. We don't like the nappiness of your hair. We don't like the way you sing. We don't like the way you dance, but yet still want to steal everything we got and be whatever we are, okay? So this is where the children of Israel were. But God was already at work. God heard their cry. God heard them call. And when he heard their pleas for help. He heard the cry of Israel. He heard them plead. He heard them ask, God, deliver us from this. And then God calls Moses. In Exodus 3, verses 1 through 3, it says, meanwhile, Moses was shepherding the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian. He led the flock to the far side of the wilderness. Now, he was in the far side of the wilderness. Now, he was way out there, the far side of the wilderness, and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. Then the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire within a bush. As Moses looked, he saw that the bush was on fire, but not consumed. So Moses thought, I must go over and look at this remarkable sight. Why isn't the bush burning up? So when you go back to that first verse, it says, there's an important word, meanwhile. You're going, well, what's that got to do with anything? Because meanwhile means whatever happened before this God was at work. So the first point I want to point out is that God is always at work around you. Always. Not sometimes. He don't sleep. He don't go on vacation. He don't go to the Bahamas and stick his feet in the sand. He is always at work. Meanwhile means the intervening time. At this time, God was intervening. That's why it says, meanwhile, or at the same time. So while the children of Israel were suffering and pleading and begging and praying, at the same time, God was working. Moses' experience with the burning bush clearly illustrates one of the ways God invites us to join him in his work. Has God invited you to join him in his work? And what was your answer, or what is your answer? Let's look at Exodus 3, verses 9 and 10. Or 9, Exodus 3. So God heard their words, and he said, so because the Israelites' cry for help has come to me, and I have also seen the way of the Egyptians, the way the Egyptians are oppressing them, therefore go. I am sending you to Pharaoh so that you may lead my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. Okay? So he's going, now Moses has had an encounter. So now God says, I'm calling you. Point number 2, when God prepares to do something in the earth, he reveals to you what he's about to do. He reveals what he's about to do. He's always at work around you, and when he gets ready to do that work, he's going to reveal it to you. So he reveals it to Moses. He says, I'm calling. He told him to go. I'm going to send you to Pharaoh so that you may lead the people out of Egypt. So let's see, what was Moses' response? God accomplishes his purpose through his people. This is the way God works. It's the way he worked with Moses and other patriarchs in the Bible, and this is how he will work with you. The Bible is designed to help you understand the ways God works. So when he starts to use you in the same way he worked in the scriptures, you will recognize it. Okay? He wants you to recognize it. Okay? He doesn't merely call Moses, he commissions Moses. Because a commission is a little bit higher than a calling. He called him at the burning bush, but now he is commissioning him. He says, a commission is a divine mandate or instruction given to individuals or groups to carry out a specific task or purpose on behalf of God. So he commissions him. So this is deep. This is more than that burning bush. That was one thing, but this disturbed Moses, I think, more than the burning bush. That he was going to have to go down to Egypt and rescue those people and deliver those people. So what does Moses do? Well, he objects to God. He objects to him. He questions him. He says in Exodus 3:11, who am I? He says in Exodus 3:13 through 14, so if I do go down there, what shall I tell them your name is? What should I tell them? And then he says in Exodus 4:1 through 9, they will not believe me. And then he says in Exodus 4:10 through 17, I am slow of speech. Yeah. He uses every excuse in the book. Y'all, I know y'all not like Moses though. He uses every excuse in the book. The problem with Moses is not who Moses is, it's who God is. Because every time he had an opposition to what God, it was I, me. I can't do this. What I'm going to do, what I'm going to say. I can't talk. I can't speak. Me, I. Moses, if you would just get out of your own way. Just get out of your own way. Okay? So let's read Exodus 3:11. This is what Moses says. This is his response. But, okay, there's that word right there, but. But means on the contrary. You already done, you already called me in the burning bush. You just finished commissioning me, but. But is a contrary. It means in opposition of. It means that you got reservations, okay? So when God calls you to do a thing and your first response is, but. He says, but Moses asked God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring the Israelites out of Israel? Who am I? Because at this point, I think Moses was having flashbacks. Because, see, for 40 years, he was the prince of Egypt. Prior to where he is right now, he was the prince of Egypt. For 40 years, he lived in the lap of luxury. For 40 years, he had the finest education. He ate the finest food. For 40 years, he was groomed to be the next Pharaoh for 40 years. For 40 years. So, I think Moses think, well, Lord, if you were going to deliver the children of Israel, why didn't you do it while I was already down there in Egypt? Because I was going to step up and be the Pharaoh. So what was the better way to deliver them than for me to just release them when I became the Pharaoh? But God's plan is not our plan. That was not how God wanted to deliver those people. Okay. Also, what happened in Egypt? Moses was saddened by the way the children of Israel were being treated, so he lost his temper and he killed an Egyptian. He ran away and he was exiled. He thought surely he would be held accountable for the crime if he went back to Egypt. So we're in verse 11. Then he said, who am I? You know what happened to me down there in Egypt, God, you know, okay? And then, after he came out of Egypt for 40 years, Moses has been tending the flock of his father-in-law Jethro. So how many is that? 40 plus 40 make what? 80 years. 80 years. You're going, God, he's too old to deliver anybody anyway. But God's time is not our time, okay? He was tending his father-in-law's flock, Jethro, and he was living an obscure life as a shepherd in the desert of Midian. At this point, his life was so humble that he didn't even have a flock of his own. He was the shepherd of somebody else's flock. He didn't even own any sheep. He was somebody else's sheep. For 40 years, he was tending somebody else's sheep. But little did he know that God was getting ready to give him his own sheep. He was going to use that rod that he was tending those sheep with to bring those children out of Israel, because God is always at work around you. He was working with Moses right then, and Moses didn't have sister nothing know. Because, see, nobody had told Moses that he was going to be deliver other people. It didn't come to him in a dream, There was no mention of, you are the deliverer. This is the first he ever heard of this. So that's why he was in opposition to it. He said, you must have the wrong person. He was having flashbacks of how his life was, the things that he had done, and he wondered, who was he that God should call him? For all he knew, his picture was hanging in the post office down there in Egypt. See, he was a criminal. He was. He did not want to go back to Egypt. So point number 3 is, when God asks you to do something that you cannot do, you have to decide what you believe about God. You got to decide if you are going to walk by sight or if you are going to walk by faith. Which one you going to do? You can't do both of them. You in a crisis right now. You got to decide what you're going to do. You going to walk by sight? You going to do the I and the me, or you going to trust God? At this point, Moses was walking by sight. He was trying to justify how he could do this in his own power. And I could just suppose he's going, okay, so now if I'm going to go down to Egypt and rescue these people, I'm going to need me an army. I can't, no little rat-a-tat people. I'm going to need some real soldiers with some swords and that's got some skills. I'm going to need some horses and some chariots and some slingshots and some arrows and some bricks and some stones. Okay? Because Moses was trying to fight this fight in his own might. Okay. His way had already resulted in murder. His way had made a mess of things. Y'all know about Sarah. The pastor was speaking about Sarah, but she wouldn't wait on God. And she made a mess of things. Okay? But what I like most about this text, about this lesson today, is God's response. He didn't bother to explain who Moses was, or pat Moses on the back, or boost Moses up, or call him man of God. He did not. But what God did, he revealed who he was. He revealed who God was. So let's look at Exodus 12. So this is what God says. I will certainly be with you. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Yeah. There you go. I will certainly be with you. What else do you need? I will certainly be with you. And, he didn't stop right there. This will be a sign to you that I am the one who sent you. When you bring the people out of Israel, out of Egypt, when you bring the people out of Egypt, you will all worship God at this mountain. Okay? So not only did he say, I'm going to be with you, then he gave them a sign. Okay. What more do you need? You have God's word that he is going to be with you. He is going to walk with you. So all you need to do is just step out there on faith. And so that's what Moses, but that's still not the end. Because then Moses still talked about how he couldn't speak. What am I going to say? Who am I going to say? I, me. Like I said, Moses, just get out your own way. Okay? When God revealed himself to man in those days, in the days of Moses, it was often associated with a newly revealed name, a newly revealed title for God. So when he had a new thing, he had a new name to go with that new thing. Okay? In verses 14 and 15, God says, then Moses asked God, I'm going to read 13. Then Moses asked God, if I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? What should I tell them? God replied to Moses, verse 14. And here's his words. I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. God also said to Moses, say this to the Israelites. The Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever. This is how I am to be remembered in every generation. So Moses, you don't even have to worry about what to say, because God just told you what to say. Write it down. Do what you have to do. Okay, he just told you what you have to say. So if Moses was going to the children of Israel as God's representative, it would be logical for them to wonder who had sent him, or what his name was, or how he had revealed himself to him. And God said to Moses, I am who I am. So now this whole statement don't even make any sense. In the English language, it's not even right. How you gonna be an I am? Okay, it's nonsense to refer to yourself as I am who I am. Yes, it reveals something important about God. It reveals that God has no equal. Because see, on each side of the word that, there's I am. And then there's that, and then there's I am. So it's like if you had an equal sign, God would be on the left side, then an equal, and then God would be on the right side, because it would be God equals God. And that's the kind of math you have to do. That's the kind of math that God does. Okay? God told Moses his name was I am, because God simply is. There was never a time when he did not exist, or a time when he will cease to exist. He is Alpha, he is Omega, he is all that in between. The name I am has within it the idea that God is completely independent. He don't need us, but he uses us. He invites us to come and be co-laborers with him. It also implies that he relies on nothing for life or existence. I am means God doesn't need anybody or anything. I am means that he is life himself. I am means that God is eternal and unchanging, and I am means the becoming one. Point number 4 is God becomes whatever is lacking in your time of need. He becomes whatever is lacking. What was lacking with Moses was confidence. God became his confidence. Moses said, well, I can't speak. Well, God became his voice. He made up all kind of excuses. Who shall they say that I am? God said, this is what you need to speak. I am that I am. God became to Moses what he needed him to be, because I am means God is the becoming one. Abraham called him the Most High God. When Abraham was asked to offer up his only son as a sacrifice, and God provided a ram, Abraham encountered him as God, my deliverer. When Sarah decided that she was going to help God provide an heir for their family, and she told her husband to sleep with her handmaiden Hagar, and then once the baby was born, Sarah despised Hagar. She mistreated her and abused her to the point that Hagar ran away. And Hagar found herself out in the wilderness. She encountered him. God sent an angel, and she encountered God as El Roi, which means you are the God that sees me. I want to be that. I want God to see me. I want God to be the God that sees me. In my pain and in my distress, I need for God to see me. When I feel abandoned and abused and mistreated, I want God to see me. I want him to be my El Roi. The name I am invites us to fill in the blank. Fill in the blank to meet your needs. When you are in darkness, Jesus says, I am the light. When you are hungry, he says, I am the bread. When you are defenseless, he says, I am the good shepherd. When you are thirsty, he says, I am your water. When you are lonely, he says, I am your friend. When you are afraid, he says, I am your refuge. When you are worried, he says, I am your peace. When you are broken, he says, I am your comfort. When you are lost, he says, I am the way. When you are sad, he says, I am your joy. When you are sick, he says, I am your healing. When you are in a storm, he says, I am your protector. When you speak what you need God to become, that is your worship. That is your worship. Speak what you need God to become. What name do you need for him to become? Do you need him to be your El Shaddai, your all in all, your all sufficient one? Do you need him to be Jehovah Shalom, your peace? What do you need for him to be? Speak that. Say that. That's what you need for him to be. God is the becoming one, becoming what we need. In this, God name is both an announcement and it's also an introduction. So when he says, I am, that's an announcement that I am. And then he introducing himself to you. I am that I am. He announces his presence. He announces what he can be to you. God is everything you need. I am is a divine title that Jesus took upon himself, often clearly identifying himself with the voice from the burning bush. Let's look at John 8:58. Jesus said to them, most assuredly, I say to you before Abraham was, I am. Jesus said to them, truly, I tell you, before Abraham was, I am. Once again, it don't make any sense. But the I am is speaking of God, the great I am, Jehovah, Yahweh. That's who it's speaking of. What is God asking you to do? Is he asking you to study, to show yourself approved, so that you can teach a Bible class? You can teach those teenagers. You can teach those children. Is he asking you to go back to school to get that degree so that he can use you in the marketplace? Is he asking you to start your own business so that you can be a witness and so that you can help people? Is he asking you to step up to ministry? Is he calling you to step up? Is he asking you to just read your word so that you can know more about him? Is he asking you to have a plan to read and a plan to study? Is he asking you to let some things go so that he can empty you out, so that he can fill you up? What is God asking you to do? God's invitation for Moses to work with him led to a crisis. The crisis was, are you going to walk by sight or are you going to walk by faith? That's where Moses was. Moses offered God numerous objections and questioned if God could accomplish such an enormous task through him. Can God accomplish an enormous task through you? Can he even accomplish a little task? Can he accomplish any task through you? Moses was saying, is God really able to do what he says? Is God really able to do what he says?